Welcome back to the YouTube channel. This video is the main cast. We do this every week. It's a weekly roundup. And this week we're talking about the Palace game. We're looking ahead to Arsenal. We've got the rumours of Raphi to Liverpool, KP's injury, and Rob Bagchi joins us to talk about his book, The Biography of Leeds United. So stick around. And click on subscribe and leave a comment and tell us how beautiful we are or how ugly we are. There we go.
Right, Mum, calm down.
The following podcast contains some strong language and some very average opinions. Any references to actual people are wildly inaccurate. It's probably best if you don't listen at all. The Roaring Peacock Podcast. Welcome back to the Roaring Peacock Podcast. This is the main cast number 22. Christ, has it been that many? In this week's episode, we'll be talking about that Palace game, looking ahead to Arsenal. Raphi to Liverpool? Question mark?
No. Exclamation mark?
KP's possible injury, and joining us as our guest co-host is Rob Bagchi, and we'll be talking about everything with him, and also his book, The Biography of Leeds United, the story of the Whites, which you can buy on Amazon. So do that. Go on, do it.
We're not going to continue until you've gone on Amazon and bought it.
Right. But first... The week began with the under-23s tearing Middlesbrough's youth team a new one in a rip-roaring first-half display of total dominance. Though Borough did make a comeback in the second half, it was too little, too late for the wannabe Yorkshiremen. And for more on the under-23s, you can check out our dedicated youth pod. It was a tale of two Joes this week, with episode 5 profiling Joe Gelhardt and a bonus interview dropping yesterday with Yorkshire Evening Post writer Joe Urquhart. I don't know why that's so funny. Ellen Road has opened up as a max vaccination centre just in time for a bunch of Londoners to get injected with some Brazilian magic and salty tears. The medicine didn't work for Gary Cahill, who gloriously passed. Palace did go home immunised against the thought they could outplay Leeds, however. Another thing they can inject? Performances like that, straight into our arteries. And after this stunning display on a night where no other football was on, Raphi suddenly pinged on pundits' radars. They were immediately vexed as to why he was playing for Leeds, deciding he should sign for Liverpool at the earliest opportunity, so the world would make sense again. Well, if Coutinho costs 140 million, then how much is Raphi? We advise Liverpool to think about that, and then fuck off back to their fish and chip eating city, the roast beef motherfucker. And in non-Leeds related news, the Orange One's impeachment began and may take weeks and cost $2 million. If only they'd asked us, we could have told them he's guilty for free. And after a spate of racist diatribe, the 600th anti-racism campaign of the season has been launched, and this time they mean it. Apparently all the t-shirts and badges did absolutely fuck all. Who would have thought? And if you're confused by all the campaigns, BLM's Take a Knee, Kick It Out's Take a Stand, and Kick It Out's Kick Racism Out of Football, Show Racism the Red Card, No Room for Racism, UEFA's Football Against Racism in Europe, or the countless others. Can we remind you of our own campaign we suggested all the way back in October? Don't be a racist cunt.
We're sticking with that one.
Unimprovable.
You don't have to do anything. You don't have to take a knee. You don't have to stand. You don't have to wear a badge. Just don't be a racist cunt. That's all you need to do.
There's no misinterpretation there. And moving on, it was a week rich in memes as we felt sympathy for a Tory for the first time. Jackie Weaver muted and kicked her way, if not into authority, then into our hearts.
You have no authority here, Adonis. No authority at all.
While a kitten turned up in court professing not to be a cat. Don't worry, little one. You will be someday. And Weetabix tried to convince us it was the best thing since sliced bread. While that idea was half-baked, it was dreamed up by a man who was full of beans, but unfortunately also full of shit. So that was your week. And joining, my name's Adonis, and you know me as at the Adelites on Twitter, and it's a very good hello from me. And joining us to discuss all of that and more is our guest co-host today, Robin Bagchi.
Hello.
And our returning Riot Badger, Alex.
Hello.
Hello. So, gentlemen, how was that?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the Palace game. It was the most comfortable I've ever watched a Leeds game in a long, long time. I didn't feel stressed in any way. I thought Liam Cooper was solid and there was no worries at the back. And yeah, really nice.
I think when we score early, you can you exhale, don't you, a little bit? Some of the tension goes, and you just think, "My God, I can really enjoy this." And I thought you were outstanding. Really gave them a schooling. I've been sort of getting up early to do the cricket for the first test, so I've been having 3 a.m. start. So I was a bit sort of drowsy watching the match, I must say. An early start the next morning as well. But I just thought it was just perfect, the way that we assessed what they were capable of doing to us, and we completely negated it right from the start.
Yeah. Although every time we do score early, I always think, oh, we'll need another. And no matter who we're playing, we'll need another.
Yeah.
At one point, I was like, I can't settle down unless we score at least 4 goals.
And then you think back to the Fulham game, you're like, oh, well, that was pretty close when we scored 4 anyway. So we can't relax. But I did feel pretty relaxed with it. I thought the performance was really measured. And it was still the same sort of football. It just wasn't as frantic and like desperate as it has been. And I think, like Rob says, I think scoring early gives us that opportunity to do it. So, yeah.
How do you feel the season has been going in general, Rob?
I think it's been going as well as we could have really hoped for in our wildest dreams after promotion, because we knew that Bielsa has a preference for keeping the squad together, that he would want to keep the players that perhaps some of us have felt, weren't ready to kick on. And they have done. Every single one of them has proved themselves worthy of having a debut season in the Premier League and to stay around. Cooper, who was brilliant on Monday night. I think Ellie looks like a class act at right back, as he always has done, and filled in brilliantly at centre half too. And particularly Harrison, who, for a third season on loan, I thought the way that he ran at Nathaniel Klein, who, was an England player only 3 or 4 years ago before his injury, was fantastic. I think, I would have been happy with 17th, as everybody would have been at the start of the season. I did think we'd do slightly better than that, but I didn't think we'd be as high as we are at the moment. And I think we can sustain it. I think that's what we've shown so far, that Bamford has the quality in this league, despite the number of misses he still makes, to really hit 20 goals. And we create so many chances. And we just... What's really strange is it's been our thing all this time, and now you've got everybody in the office. I work for a newspaper. Everybody's talking about us in a way that they hadn't in the past. And it in some ways, you want to tell them to F off. This is our thing. Keep your opinions out of it. But in another way, it's quite revealing to see what they think. And I'm not quite sure sometimes whether it's quite a patronising, oh, well done, you're playing this sort of attractive style that, will never catch on and, you'll soon get found out. Or whether there is a genuine appreciation now of what Bielsa is and the revolution that he's managed to pull off at Leeds.
Just give the office a few verses of where were you when we were shit. Yeah. It usually works for me. It's awful that when you just like co-opting the movement that we've been. It's like you're saving up for Christmas and somebody just steams and goes, oh yeah, I'll buy everything. No, we've gone through them 16 years. We've gone through League One, so let us enjoy it. Go and support Liverpool or something, glory sporting bastards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, it's more a case of I've got an 11-year-old son, and he has long had the piss taken out of him at school. We live in London. For his shirts and at the football club he plays for. And now everybody does keep mentioning it to him, last half of the championship season last season. And now it's constantly, isn't Raphi doing well? Isn't Calvin playing well? Isn't,
Yeah, so it has been good to see because, like, my nephews are Leeds supporters, and there's never been a hint of them supporting a Man City or a Man United. Thank God for that. And I know one of them will be listening now, but I think we've seen that as well, where all their school has kind of like gone from wearing like Premier League shirts to, Leeds shirts have just started to drift in. And yeah, it's good to see that be prevalent now.
Yeah.
So, Rob, you mentioned at the top that when we score the first goal, you can exhale. And somebody else who exhaled for the final time was Gary Cahill. So let's talk about Raphinha. And that kind of also ties in with maybe some of your Telegraph friends talking about Leeds, because everybody sort of perked up at Raphinha and kind of recognized his skills and ability. And the dialogue around it was, we need to get him straight to Liverpool.
I did think it was a good metaphor, though, wasn't it? How quickly the Brazilian variant can go through an Englishman. So we've got to be very careful with that.
Yeah, I mean, he's immediately cropped up on people's radars, hasn't he, just by that one piece of skill. But I mean, I think arguably, the ball to Harrison to score at Newcastle was the equal of anything. His finishes against Everton, his finishes against Newcastle. I think there has been a slow awakening to the fact that we've got a real gem on our hands here from, outsiders. But yeah, I think it's laughable, isn't it? This idea that as soon as we have a decent player that he's too good for us, that we're not allowed to have nice things too. Let's flog him off to Liverpool. You can sort of see that Cantona thing all over again, can't you? Or John Charles or something. You've got this wonderful world-class player. I mean, I know Cantona's a hugely different story, but you've got this thing that makes Leeds fans feel special. But it's like, well, no, you can't have him for too long. Let's get rid of him. And I mean, I do think that every board in the past, apart from the one that was around in the 60s and early 70s, probably would have cashed in on him at some point. But I don't think this one will. I presume he's got a watertight contract, and I think the idea that we'd flog him, even to fund 6 or 7 signings, is it's laughable. I don't think we'd do that anymore.
Well, I don't know. Radrizzani's made mention that he's going to be following the Leicester model, which is that. So we will scout very well. We'll buy. I mean, Raphinha's an absolute bargain at 17 million quid. I mean, that Costa must be looking at his price tag going, oh shit. But so if we sell him if a club comes in and offers us enough, as long as we reinvest that in replacements, I think that is showing that we're following the Leicester model. But it will hurt and it will sting. And the problem is Raphinha's got form for it, where he's kind of been a little bit mercenary, where he's joined a club for a season and then left for pastures new. So I'm kind of preparing myself to never see him play, which is awful. So
I did read about his time in Sporting Lisbon, and it did seem like he didn't really want to leave from there. And so I know that he's left Rennes like after a very short spell, but I hope. Can we just keep him forever? Is what I'm saying, basically.
Yeah. We finish in the top 10 though. We get huge bonus payments for every position that you land in. The more successful we are, the better that we'll be quick to hang on to him. And I wouldn't have thought that 2 seasons would even if he has ambitions to go to Barcelona or Liverpool or whoever, or Champions League last 4 type club at the moment, I don't think we'd necessarily have to sell him. But I do agree that the Leicester model, the way that they have managed to get the sums that they've got for some of the players they've sold, 50 odd million for Chilwell, what they got for Maguire and replaced him with Fofana, who is, better than he is and 40 million quid cheaper, so there is something to be said about that. And that's where Orta comes in, I suppose, in terms of identifying the talent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He always talks about like 1/3 of transfers working out well. And if you think about, like, we got Raphi for 20, basically. If we sell him for 60, then we're just replacing him.
Yeah.
But if we sell him for 80 or something like that, then there's potentially more of a chance. But the thing is that he's got such a high ceiling. I mean, he reminds me of a young Ronaldinho or something like. Maybe it's just my rose-tinted glasses because he's wearing a white shirt, and I just can't believe it. But he's fantastically good, and we'd be looking at like either 1 or 2 contracts. So he's 24 now, and I presume it's a 4-year deal, and then that would take him into his kind of peak, and then his next contract he'd probably be looking at Champions League football or whatever. But as a fan, you're not even thinking about any of that. You just want him to stay forever.
I just love the dynamic as well, how he's linking up with Patrick Bamford. I was listening to the Leeds United podcast, and they actually communicate in French because
on the Leeds United podcast.
Yeah, I'd listen to it. Sorry.
Oh,
we'll discuss it later. I actually quite enjoy it. I've got to be honest. I quite enjoy Patrick Bamford. He's a very good orator, and I think he's a really good ambassador for the club. I think the way that he's spoken to the press this season after last. And there was a little bit of a bad relationship between him and the fans. I think because he's so open now and he's talking a lot more, I think we're all taking to him. But yeah, he was saying that because his Portuguese isn't very good and Rafinha's English isn't very good, because he spent a year at a French club, he can then speak to him. So they speak on the field in French. That's leads that for you, isn't it? So
what's the French for? Pass the fucking ball.
Let's find out.
Okay. So something bad that happened on Monday was KP seems to be in the mud. Do we know anything about that?
He was ambling for a little while, wasn't he? I mean, I remember thinking he's not right. Why are we keeping him on? And we took him off really late. But yeah, it's been released. I think it's the Athletic have released their treatment table list, and he's on there with I think it's a blue spot, which means it's between 7 and 30 days return.
A blue spot sounds bad.
It does. At least it's not a black spot, is it? Yeah. Instant death.
As long as you don't have the same colour as Forshaw, I think you're fine.
We do match reaction videos now. If you haven't seen them, check them out on our YouTube channel. And the lowest moment in this game was me sunk back in the couch as far horizontal as you could possibly go, while still being able to actually see the screen. And I'm just saying, oh God, KP in the mud. He's the one player we can't replace.
I'd like to know what it is. I mean, when's the press conference for Arsenal?
I presume it's tomorrow, isn't it?
Tomorrow, so we'll find out. We'll get some sort of metaphor about rivers and too much in it, and you got to look upstream, and we'll infer from context what the actual injury is.
But the one game we played really well without him against Villa was when, well, not the entire game, but when Strike went off and Shackleton came on. Would you see that as a sort of solution rather than mucking about with Strike and breaking up that centre-half partnership now?
Yeah, I think them two, they're really solid. I wouldn't change that at all. I think you're right. I think Shackleton in the CDM is probably one of his best options. Or Click, maybe. But he's not really shone in that position, has he?
No, I mean, I think Shackleton's got such a talent and gets so few opportunities. I sort of understand why, given that Bielsa does like to pick his strongest team whenever he can, and he's not quite there. But I do think, he's an exceptional talent, and I don't think he would let us down in the middle there at all.
Let's look ahead to Arsenal then. And Arsenal haven't been doing particularly well this season. We should have beaten them in the last game. No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we hit the woodwork God knows how many times. 3, 4, 5, and yeah. Oh, we played really well, but yeah, we should have won. And it felt like a defeat, didn't it?
Have you seen how wound up their fans are about Alioski?
Oh, really?
Yeah, because on the Leeds United podcast, I didn't listen to it. Not at all. He mentions that Alioski said, "Oh, I can't wait for Sunday." He goes, "Oh, why?" Because I'm playing against my friend Pepe again. And it's been clipped by the Arsenal fans, and they're just trying to force a rivalry with us. Who do they think they are? But it's like, no, it's a feral child. You do not understand. This is Gianni Alioski, the tunnel shaker. He's not playing mind games. So.
It's just who he is. He could do anything, couldn't he? He could say anything. So
yeah. It's just like somebody's posting that this is the guy, and it's that clip of him just walking at the tunnel going, Peppa Pig, Peppa Pig. Just totally out of context. That's why we love him.
The man, the myth.
The
Feels
feral
like
child.
a psychedelic dream trying to get into the mind of Alioski. Imagine that. I think it's maybe some kind of horror film waiting to happen. You can buy the rights at theroaringpeacock.com. But Alioski has come into a lot of stick this season. I thought he played very well against Arsenal in the first match. And I think deservedly so, he's got stick because I feel like he's not really a left back. Having said that, the last 3 games seem much improved.
Yeah, I think it was good. He was getting a lot of feedback off Jack Harrison coming off after the first half against Palace. So I think there was some disagreement going on there. But when was the last time we had a recognised left back? Was it Debok? Is that the last recognised left back we had?
I never recognised him as a left back.
No, I don't think he recognised himself in the mirror. Oh, God, poor guy. I've never seen anybody so shell shocked apart from the last Brazilian that we had. But yeah, it's unfair to he's in the Premier League playing against Premier League players at left back, which isn't his position, and his tendency is to get forward, and he's always going to get forward.
I mean, he does have that cocker spaniel sort of ability, doesn't he? Just to go crazy and run around. But when he runs forward, when he overlaps or underlaps Harrison, he's always there. He's always demanding the ball, which is, bravery, really, isn't it? When you're not playing particularly well, he never shirks his responsibility. I think defensively, he can be all over the place when someone really runs at him. But you can't help but feel sympathy for him. And I would say that, they need to buy a left back, obviously, in the summer. I think it has to be the key priority. But he's done really well there. Dallas gives you more security at the back. But it's not his position either, really. I think. But when Alioski's played out on the wing, when Harrison hasn't played out there, he doesn't do a great deal different to when he's playing at left back.
No, it's not. It's in exactly the same position when we're going forward, whether he's on the wing or left back or whatever. But yeah, I think I wouldn't like to lose him to Galatasaray. That's page 1. But I still think he's got a place in the squad. I just think we need a recognised left back and we need to play him to his strengths, which is just come out there and just play. Just leave me alone. Just don't talk to me anymore.
Okay. So that's Arsenal then. Are we beating Arsenal?
Yes.
Rob?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've lost... their keeper's suspended, isn't he? They had 2 sendings off in their last match. So I think David Luiz is suspended, Leno's suspended, and I think Thomas, the guy they got from Atletico, is also injured. So, I think we should beat them. I think we've always played well down there, really. I think it's the most... It's the away fixture I've been to most, I think, in my life. And I've seen some really good victories there. And also saw when Thierry Henry came back and...
just turned a tepid team into, the Galacticos, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, I think he scored 4 against us once. And even he came back at about the age of 36 in a cup match and scored, didn't he? I think Warnock was in charge in the FA Cup about 10 years ago. But yeah, I think we always put on a show there. It's always a good ground to go to, but it's a shame that we can't be there.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because we haven't won in London for quite some time. But we do seem to play well against Arsenal for some reason. We always have. I think if we hadn't have, like you mentioned Galatasaray, if we hadn't have got knocked out of the UEFA Cup by them, I think we would have beaten Arsenal in the final because that's what we do. So that would have been another trophy. But yeah, they're not on a good run of form at all. So they lost to Wolves and they lost to Villa. But on the other hand, they beat Southampton and they drew with the scum, who have been doing well. And when you say that their keeper is out, that fills me with dread because the last time that happened was against Everton.
As soon as I heard that, I went, I'd rather have Jordan Pickford. Every day of the week, I'd rather have Pickford in that.
Okay. So let's move on then. Oh, and if you want to listen to our preview of the Arsenal game, it'll be out on Saturday, where we're joined by Keith Dover again for the
Oh no.
Keith Dover podcast. If you haven't heard that, basically the Arsenal preview that we did earlier in the season, we were joined by Keith. He's from the Tuesday Club, which is famous for having Alan Davis on, and he basically took over the podcast.
We were guests in our own podcast.
I didn't say that few words on a podcast. I've only said that few words on a podcast on one of our own podcasts twice. And once with Keith Dover, and the other one was, of course, with Phil Hay.
Oh, we should get Phil and Keith on the same pod and just let them battle it out.
That'd be
It's
brilliant.
like, I think Zencaster would crash.
It'd be 90 minutes of them talking over the top of each other at the same time. And you trying to isolate the different audio waves so you can actually listen to what's been happening. So let's move on then. And Rob, you have written a book.
I have, yeah. It's thank you for holding it up. It's like a history of the club, right from the beginning, 1919, to the moment we got promoted in 2020. I'd written another book 20 odd years ago about the Raphi team, and it's a nice product, isn't it? It's well designed, smells good. What a bouquet! It's fragrance.
For those of you listening on the podcast, I was sniffing the book. You can see that on YouTube.
But yes, so had always wanted to write a sequel to the Raphi book that I wrote with my mate Paul Rogerson 20 years ago, but we couldn't really get publishers interested, and we decided not to do it. And then roughly about when that season when Gary Monk was in charge, our doomed run to the playoffs sort of got a lot of interest back in Leeds, not just from us who love the club and have been with it through thin and thinner, for 16 years. But there's a lot of widespread interest. So I was approached about writing a book again and looking at something with regards to the centenary. So I just started on that really in about 2016, 17, and it took me a hell of a long time to pull it all together. But it is a 101-year history of the club, because obviously we didn't get promoted at the end of 2019, so the publishers didn't think there was anything to really hang it on apart from the centenary, and Moscow had already beat me to that. So
those damn square ball guys beating you to everything. Not relatable at all.
If they weren't such nice fellas, you'd resent them, wouldn't you? Yeah.
No, I don't have enough pride in myself to do that. But no, Daniel's book is great as well. But this is really good. There was just Alex. Do you want to talk about something?
No,
I just find this.
Oh yeah, can do. Yeah, I guess so. I think something got levelled at Moscow, didn't it? Where somebody said, "Oh, your book, you've just copied and pasted it from Wikipedia." I think not a lot of respect to the research that goes into yourself and Moscow's sort of efforts. I think I could not even imagine the amount of research that you guys have had to go into to do this stuff.
I mean, that's the thing, that the research is the enjoyable part, really, because you just it takes you off in all sorts of different directions that you don't know. But I mean, it's such a shame that so many people have not sort of covered the club up to about the 50s or 60s before. The Raphi really is the moment where people start to get interested, and there are, interviews and other things. But there's really nothing to pick up from before then, because people like, Wilf Copping or Bert Sproston, great players in the 30s, England internationals, never did interviews because, the papers just weren't interested in them. So trying to piece out together what they were like as people and sort of chart their paths through the club and what the club meant to them and what we owe to them too, was the best part of it, really.
Now, I have to make a confession. I've got a pile of things to do that is very, very big. So I haven't been able to get through much of the book yet. But one of my favourite parts so far, I would like to read to you, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
For much of the past 17 years, where once we had spoken about history and tradition, goals, formations, the potential for fun or wallowed in misery, we practiced eternal vigilance, attempting to divine the meaning of official statements, some of them even crafted by Max Clifford, put on the payroll by Risdale. We had to teach ourselves the rudiments of accountancy to decipher the books, turn sleuth to piece together offshore ownership arrangements and liabilities, delve into Italian criminal and civil litigation, trawl Gulf-based financial newswires searching for clues, and scour Amnesty International reports. Throughout, while the club's fortunes have been hostage to the whims of the fanciful, sulphurous, vapid, or volatile regimes that stretch between the Caspian purchase in '96 and Cellino's final farewell in 2017, the saving grace has been the fans. They, especially the large, rowdy away support, have kept the flame burning, mounting the barricades of resistance, asserting the club's exceptionalism and rousing its spirit. In practical terms, many have become activists in the Supporters Trust and Community Benefit Society. They have built an institutional framework to save Leeds from the need for saviours when the day comes, while also rallying to help food banks, raise money for hospices and hospitals, work truly worthy of the name United. What characterises Leeds, then, is not a paranoia or victimhood, but dissent. It is a status that can be described as in opposition to establishment, the board, sometimes the whole lousy world, and part of it stems from the reasons for the club's existence as well as its experiences.
Yeah, sums it up, doesn't it? I mean, the stuff that the little pockets of expertise that our fan base have got in Italian law, and now accounts and stuff like that, is we wouldn't have had to do that if we'd have been owned correctly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if it's been the fans that have held Bates to account, it's been the fans that have held Cellino to account. It's the fans that really first, despite all the stuff that GFH did at the beginning, the relief that Bates had finally gone, all that PR nonsense of them, of them trying to, all that stuff about Haig. He would just blatantly lie about being a lifelong Leeds fan when there was no evidence for it at all. And yet, as I think I say somewhere else in the book, what did they think the internet was for? This is like 2012, 2013. How did they think they could make these statements without people squirreling away until they found out what they were really up to and what they were really about? It was a hell of a ride those years, and most of it, on the pitch was awful, but off it there was this real sense of, obviously they had their supporters, or is supporters the right word? The Chalibas and the people who would forgive GFH anything. Bates had his apologists too, among the fan base. But what you could find out about them was largely due to the fact that people were doing, God's work, really, like looking into all this stuff for us and helping us navigate what was, really hazardous waters, I think, for Leeds. And
then projecting signs onto the side of the East Stand. It's unreal, that stuff.
Yeah. All we ever craved was an owner who would actually recognise the potential of Leeds, and rather than crimping our style. And I think Rabdizani has done that. He has been sold on what Leeds' potential is. And everything has stemmed from that. He's put the structure in place. Yeah, of course he wants a return in the long run. But he's had someone with the financial acumen not to live from season to season. You felt with Bates that it was a new script every season, in the sense that ship out a load of players, cash in for what you can, sell off the catering this year, mortgage the season tickets the next year. It was just hand to mouth while he could get out. Same with GFH, and Cellino was in some respects, trying to do something with the books, which were in a terrible state, the finances.
Yeah.
But the way he went about it, and his just volatility was just amazing. And then to find out all the criminal activity and the fraud that he'd been done for, and yet this was a man, now with the keys to the Leeds United piggy bank, whatever.
He's literally a fit and proper person.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I just love how you tied all of those things together, all of those feelings together, all of the experiences as fans, because a lot of people feel so much but can't express it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the job of writers, is to put all of that feeling, the 16 years, or not even, for some people it's 50, 60, 70 years of an experience of being a fan, but also to kind of capture the spirit of Leeds, like you've done so well in that passage. That's the real thing that you get out of it when you're reading this book, is that it speaks those emotions that you felt for you in a way that you've done much better than probably I could or many other people.
I think you've seen examples of where a group of people have tried to understand what it is to be a Leeds fan without being a Leeds fan and come up short. The Gaviscon badge basically is the example of that. And I think you've got to have lived it to kind of understand that and to convey it as well. Like Adonis says, that's the skill.
Well, thank you. What I wanted to do was to sort of write a polemic, to write a manifesto of why we are like we are, and to, I can only have done that having lived it. I'm 53, so I'm older than you guys. So I do remember, seeing a team play in the European Cup final and then just fall off a cliff, really, and to be going to matches back then and living through all the stuff that went off on the field and off the field, and then when we got relegated in '82. And then to see all the painstaking work that Wilkinson did and Leslie Silver did to build it back, to see how quickly Ridsdale squandered that. We had, of course, the old dream bollocks, living the dream and all that. It was fantastic to be able to go to those European matches. It was a great run. And, the O'Leary side, I just remember them really fondly in terms of some brilliant victories and some fantastic performances. But had we known how much it was built on sand, it would have terrified us at the time, and we would not have made that bargain with the devil. Yeah, we'll just give us two decent years without silverware, and we'll have what's going to follow.
We'll have the 16 years outside of the Premier League in exchange. No thanks. Yeah,
and I think that's what Dale sort of said in his book. We all lived the dream, we all lived it, but it wasn't like that. It was a nightmare for most of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw a little bit of the reluctance to celebrate the sort of signings that we're making at the start of the season, because people are so scarred from what Ridsdale did, and mortgaging the players on, that we're paying multiple millions. We probably paid more for Seth Johnson than we did for Raphinha. And it's that sort of thing that, everybody's a little bit reticent to go, oh yeah, that's really good. Actually, are we funding this in the right way? I think we asked the same question to Phil when we had Phil on. It's like, do you think this is right? And then again, Kieran, do you reckon this is all right, Kieran? So I think
we're not spending too much.
Are we living within our means?
But how else could you behave? We've been burnt so many times that it gives you this excessive caution, doesn't it? And we'd all seen what Fulham did a couple of years before when they absolutely spunked 150 million quid, and went straight down, worse than the team that had got them promoted. It's so easy to mess it up. But I do think that what they've done really well this time is to have, a structure of the club that has, obviously has Bielsa in charge of the playing side, but it also has, scouting, it has independent scouting, it has a pathway to the top, really, through the admin side too. So almost like a permanent civil service, rather than, like the government might change, but we've got the people in there that know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to have a plan that is more than just from transfer window to transfer window. Because Bates and Chilino were the same, as in the ethos that he had in the summer transfer window wasn't the same in January. And Bates would just, well, it was Chilino's era when it was like, don't go to bed just yet, and we ended up selling 2 players. So it's, it's nice to have that. I mean, I didn't see anybody really complaining that we didn't sign anybody in January, which is the first transfer window that I've seen us not complain that we've not bought somebody in January. So
Yeah,
I think we're doing right.
It's a real turnaround, isn't it? I mean, it would have been nice to get a midfielder, but it's not. We know where we're placed. We know that will have to come in the summer, and we don't need that sort of impetus in January. Plus, we saw what happened with Big Kev. You can't learn the Bielsa way, so quickly, can you? And I do think the summer signings will benefit from a full pre-season too. I think they'll kick on next year as well.
No, absolutely.
So you've wanted to write this book for 20 years almost, I guess, and then you've ended up researching for 4, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was on and off, like doing a full-time job. So I started really. The Telegraph asked me to start writing like monthly blogs on Leeds, so I started doing that again. When we under Christensen, under Monk, and then Bielsa's first season. So I didn't actually start writing the book till quite a bit later, sort of 2018, 2019, but had done all the research in a couple of years before. And when we wrote The Unforgiven, I think I said before to Moscow, we were chatting about it, that we had written off the entire prehistory of Leeds. It basically starts in 1961 and tells you, apart from John Charles, you might as well, avoid the rest of it because nothing really happened. And I sort of wanted to redress that sort of, it wasn't fair on the club and it wasn't fair on the people who built the club. So it was, that's the part that I enjoyed the most, sort of writing about the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, because I've lived everything from the 70s onwards, really. So it wasn't too difficult in terms of knowing how to express myself about those events. But it was like really interesting to try and piece together what the club was like right at its beginning. And the themes are all the same all the way through. We have struggled for money. The city has turned its back on the club many times. It's had real problems attracting a crowd at times. And I do think that, I've said it before, but what's really strange about Leeds in 2021 is we're more popular now than we've ever been. That O'Leary got bigger crowds than Raphi did in the seasons that he was in charge. There was still an element within the Leeds public that would turn its back on Leeds United, and it hasn't always been a healthy relationship between the city and the club. But now it just seems, that word United, it's so trite to say it, but it does seem that the city, the club, the people, have had a yearning for something, and the club is now providing it.
Yeah. The city's been that disconnected at some points that Leeds Rhinos fans have been arguing with Leeds United fans about the ownership of marching on together. That's how bad it got. We're a lot more joined up now, which is good.
Do you think maybe that the redemption story, so the wilderness years, 16 years away from the Premier League, has sort of led to that reconnection?
I think so. I think it's because the people have kept the flame alive, I think, in terms of what the club means and what it could be, its huge potential. We've always talked about its potential. And so all you want is a sign, a little spark of that people know what potential this club has and how they can make it achieve its potential. And I think that's what people have been yearning for, that in the past it's never been a case of, plus Bates was making us pay top dollar to watch terrible football. We were paying Premier League prices to watch.
Premier League prices. Yeah, I remember that.
Yes,
Bates radio.
Oh God, it's unbelievable to think how long he was in charge for and what it was like. I think most people, would never like to dwell on that, but it's such an important part of who we are as a fan base. I think that we got through it, the humour that was shown towards it too. The shoes, the pens, everything that everyone's got an impression of Ken Bates talking to Susanna. That's these things will never leave us. But I think there's been a huge yearning for it within the city, and I think the club is reaping the benefits of just having people who recognise what its potential is.
Yeah. Disconcerting though, isn't it? It's like something's come out of the woodwork. Radrizzani is going to be like have a boat full of dead bodies and guns at some point, and we'll find out. It's fine. It's inevitable.
Well, yeah, I mean, but people are so quick to. Was it last year or the year before when he bought the rights to Serie A and La Liga for his his streaming service, and there were lots of articles back then. It's not going very well. It's not going well. This will have a huge impact on Leeds. But of course, it hasn't, as far as we know yet. And I do think he is more sensibly structured his finances, and you can't believe everything you saw on the Amazon dock. There was a lot of, it had a lot of Vaseline on the lens at times, didn't it? In terms of the way the club was portrayed, but and him as some sort of shining figure. I have got no reason not to believe everything that he said so far, but I do think we'll never rid ourselves of the scepticism, and I think that's a healthy thing because
absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
As I said, we've had our fingers burnt too many times.
Yeah, every owner should be dealt with a healthy level of scepticism. Doesn't matter how good it is, you've still got to question the decisions. Like the Myanmar thing, I still don't agree with that. The Kiko thing, let's not go into that. But you still got to be sceptical about the decisions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sneak this in the middle of a podcast and see if you are actually listening. This month's this is a bit of my artwork, and we were giving this away to a subscriber or somebody who retweeted. So congratulations, Martin Garrity at MJ Garrity 72. Get in touch if you're listening. You've won a print. If not, you've missed out. And and this month we'll be doing the same thing. So you can choose one of these pieces of art. So all you need to do is subscribe on YouTube and leave a comment, or find us on Twitter at Peacock's Raw. So there you go. That's the announcement that I had to do. Rob, I wanted to ask you this because I've been asking a lot of people this, but how did you celebrate promotion?
Well, it was a very strange day, really, because obviously, given that it was a Huddersfield result that got us up, and I'd never quite thought that they would be able to pull it off, and because we were in lockdown, I didn't really do a huge amount apart from drink a hell of a lot and ring up the mates that I always talk to about Leeds, the people I went to, and we were just sort of squawking at each other incoherently, as you do, because I remember when we won the league in '92. It came back from Yorkshire that night, and me and my mate, and we hadn't had a drink, and he just said, let's go out. And we went to a pub in Hammersmith in London by the river, and that felt really anticlimactic. We should have stayed in Leeds. We should have been out in the city. And I felt it this time that not being. My mum still lives in Wakefield, and I've lived down here for years now. But I still felt that would have been the best place to be. And I don't. I utterly sympathise with the people who went to the ground. I can understand why they've been ticked off and people have criticised them. But, Jesus, if I were in Leeds, I'd be straight down there. But sadly, I wasn't. So, had a lot to drink and made a lot of, you fist pumping, irrational things that, you'd never, if you caught yourself in a mirror doing it, you'd think you'd gone daft. But yeah, it was an amazing moment. And to see them, to see that footage of when Bielsa turned up, that was, I'm a hardened man in many ways, not a hard man, but, your emotions are hardened by everything that's happened to us. But, I just thought it was just such a wonderful moment when he catches sight of Calvin, when he catches sight of Bamford, and you see the respect and the love they have for each other. It was amazing.
I worried at that point that I thought he's lost the veneer of like a hard football manager now. I thought he's going to struggle to reel him in and get a performance in because he's shown his human side, but luckily it's not. I think it's worked quite well because they know that side of him exists, but they still have to perform to see that grandfatherly side of him, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was funny the way they were sort of hiding the bottles of beer behind their backs. You know, when he comes in, and then they sort of gradually realised that he wasn't going to bollock them, so they just sort of edged him out of it. But
that's good.
Yeah, when Bielsa was hugging KP, I've told my fiance a number of times to not leave the kitchen door open when she's chopping onions. It was just so coincidental.
Yeah,
there were tears. There were,
and it's every time you replay the video as well. She's back in the kitchen with the onions. It's just so inconvenient. It's terrible.
Can you leave those onions alone, love?
For God's sake.
I mean, and the other thing is, I mean, to have a team that is so likeable, really. I mean, is there any one of them that you don't like? I mean, apart from Kiko, obviously, but there's been times in the past where the team's been full of people you just can't stand as footballers or as players. And, they're putting on the badge, they're putting on the shirt, you're just going along as a sense of duty, to watch them. And you just think, I've got no investment in these people. I don't like them. And yet here, we've got players who are, it just seems so normal, so grounded.
Yeah, I think it showed in the outpouring of gratitude towards Barry Douglas, who didn't play much in that season, but he still, like, everybody was sad to see him go, and it was, it was nice to see that because he was as much part of the dressing room as he was everybody else.
Yeah, I don't remember feeling so much love for a Leeds team, even back in the days of this shirt, 2000, 2001, and all that. There were still some characters in the team, your likes of Lee Bowyer, who you loved, but there was maybe another side to him, and yeah.
You wouldn't want to say something wrong to him out in Majestics, would you? No.
Let's not get involved in a litigation, but
no. He was acquitted.
I don't think there's even any allegedly about it, is there? Come on now.
Yeah. Yeah, just listen to the disclaimer at the start of the pod if you're planning on suing us, Lee.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just seemed like a lovely group, a lovely bunch of lads. As
you can't fault the lads.
Yeah, as Neil Warnock would have said.
Yeah. And he did every flipping week, didn't he?
Right. Yeah.
But
he had to be right at some point, and now is the time. So well done, Neil.
Yes. Yeah.
Right here. So we've come to the end of our time together. Parting is such sweet sorrow, but let's leave everybody with some hopefully positive final thoughts. So maybe start off with you, Badger.
I'm searching for positivity. Okay, so if anybody would have come up to you, let's say that goal from Leeds legend Emil Smith-Rowe goes in, and they turn around to you and say Leeds are promoted now, and in February we'll be going into the Arsenal match above them, and Patrick Bamford had been considered for England, you'd have gone fuck off.
Yeah,
that's where we're at. I mean, just enjoy it.
Rob?
Yeah, we're playing well. We have not taken a step backwards all season. I think the team is coming together, playing a style of football that is it takes teams time to suss us out, and I think we just have a really good chance of beating Arsenal because of the way we play, because of their weaknesses, because of the fact that Bielsa just has this aura about him that will find a way to beat them. I'm really positive about Sunday.
Sounds fantastic to me. I'll take some of that. And Rob, can you let us know where people can find your book?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment with the bookshops closed, Amazon is about your best bet, really. But I mean, there are other bookshops that have websites at Waterstones and other places. The publisher itself, Vision Sports, which is the SP. If you can, I'll send a link really, but you can get signed copies on there if you need to, or if you hit me up on Twitter, I can send you a signed book plate or a dedication or anything that you like. Happy to stick one in the post for you. And on Twitter, I'm at Unforgiven RB.
Fantastic. And what can you do? There's some like postcards or something that you could sign as well, like a little bit in a porn pose, but not naked, no. Just a little bit covered up.
No, tastefully done.
Yeah. Well, well, of course, yeah. I'll do whatever the public wants.
There you go. Heard that here first. I can guarantee.
2045 eBay. I've got a signed sexy photo of Rob Bagchi.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed that podcast. It was number 70. So, time for the morgue.
Not long left, boys.
Been nice knowing you.
Yeah. No. If you want to give us a follow, if you want to subscribe, if you want to comment, if you want to like, if you want to share, if you want to pass the peacock along to your friends and family, that would be we'd be enormously grateful if you did that. And if you didn't, we're not going to hold it against you. So no worries.
No, I will.
Yeah,
I hold it against you.
Badger's going to hold something against you.
Something against you. It's going to be a signed picture of Robin. I'll hold it against you.
Okay, and so thank you very much for listening. It's been lovely to have Rob Bagchi on as a guest co-host. Maybe we can rope him into being part of the Roaring Peacock. I don't think we can pay as much as the Telegraph. It's a purely volunteer basis. So if you want to follow him on Twitter, it's at UnforgivenRB. And it's a very goodbye from Rob.
Goodbye. Thank you.
And if you want to follow Alex, it's at Riot Badger on Twitter. And give him a follow because he does very funny videos of dogs to Bryn Law commentary that other people rip off, and then Gary Lineker shares it.
What is that all about? I don't understand. Like, I did that in August last year, and then all of a sudden, in February 2021, people are posting it, and it's, oh, this is hilarious. And Gary Lineker's like, oh, this is hilarious. Jeremy Vine's like, oh, this is so funny. I'm like, where's my credit, bitches?
We definitely need that soft piano music and the black and white image, the black and white filter for you talking about that.
Where is my credit?
So it's a very goodbye from Alex.
Letters.
And I'm at the Adelites. Give me a follow too. So very goodbye from me. That's the Roaring Peacock out. Come on, Leeds.
Come on,
And on. Most of our stats come from LUFC Stats or LUFC Data on Twitter. A very special thanks to Barney Stewart, Cook Ewan and Howard Metcalf, Josh Pearson, Laura, Leon and Rob, The Light Show, and all our family and friends.
So many games to play, don't care what's on your mind.